Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and welcome to this morning's A Different Perspective. I am so excited you guys are here with me today. But also I'm excited because we have some extra wonderful people in the studio today. Over to my right, we have Rachel. She is with Dr. Stan Schulte's office, one of our amazing offices down in Nebraska area, Lincoln. She has been here for a couple days. I also want to thank Dr. Brandon, who left yesterday, who was here and enjoyed some time from Wednesday through Friday in the clinic. And he's an amazing doc that's down there. Plus, we also have some special guests, some amazing young people that we've connected on Facebook, and I had the privilege to meet them a little bit more intimately today because Mark Lee and Zach met Mark Lee at the I Disagree book launch, correct? And so it's kind of cool. So they are here today in studio, plus all the behind the scenes. We have Aiden, we have Brandon, we have Uriah, we have my daughter Faith, we have all the people, you know, enjoying the time back here. So thank you guys so much for joining with me. I see a lot of you guys are already getting on for a great topic today. And I've been on for a couple weeks. Thank you, Dr. Greg, for doing an amazing job with the cardiovascular aspect last week. The amount of questions that came in from that was great. Thank you for all that. And this week, I want to let you guys know, starting tomorrow, I'm going to spend a whole week because I've gotten inundated with a massive amount of Facebook message, massive amount of actually emails about people that are very scared about coronavirus. So I'm going to teach you guys the immune system, doing some lives, doing some videos like this. Brandon and I had already put together some ideas for it because we want to bring you good information so you are not scared. And there's times to be scared and there's times not to be scared. So I want to make sure to differentiate between those and give that our perspective on it and what you can do for it that way. So that being said, our series that we are going to continue with, once again, actually is a topic that obviously I love to talk about. And we're going to actually combine a couple things today, the estrogens and testosterone. And we're going to talk about some labs, we're going to talk about some things that women and both men go through, because as I've taught on my hormone connection seminar, men and women are extremely dramatically different. You know, from my understand, Zach and Mark Lee, you guys are engaged, right? They are young. I know, Mark Lee, you're 24. Zach, how old are you? 25. 25, okay. They are learning this good information at a nice young age. I wish me and Christy, we were that age that one time together, and I wish we would understand some of this information because, once again, estrogens and testosterone do a very dramatic different thing, both physically and psychologically, which we're going to cover some of that stuff today. But what it also does, there's physical attributes, but there's mental attributes. But what I'm going to show you and talk about some things today is also there's some attributes that come from it that you don't want. Ladies, you don't want high testosterone. Guys, you don't want low testosterone. Well, vice versa, you don't want low or high of any of them that way. But what does happen is when you actually have these things off, there are physical ramifications. There are psychological ramifications. And the one thing that all couples do not want is the mental ramifications of anything being off. Because you can look at that beautiful bride or that wonderful husband and you virtually want to kill them, okay? And that's okay. But if you don't understand these things, it can be, you know, quite devastating. So that's why the Hormone Connection Seminar started off, I don't know if I ever shared the history of it. I can actually tell you that there was one woman that said to me in a consult room one time, she said, "Doc, you need to teach about hormones." And my first response, I don't know if many of you guys know this, it's no different than Brandon came to me. Brandon, how long ago was it? 3.5 or 4 years ago? 3.5 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday. Brandon says, "Uncle Patrick, I want you to meet with me and stuff like that." I said, "Okay." He came on over. He goes, "Let's go for some coffee." And he goes, "I want you to watch this video." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, I want you to get on YouTube and do some media stuff." My initial response was absolutely not. It was. I was like, "No way. And then he persisted and he pushed and he had influence, and that's why I'm standing in front of you guys today. Vice versa. There was a woman that actually, she sat with me because she told me that the psychological things that have changed with her. And she's a mother of 5 kids, which some of them are adults now, obviously, today. But what happened is she sat there and said, "Doc, you need to get this information out there so they can understand it." And I'm like, "No." I didn't want to. It's not a joke. I'm like, because by nature, I've always been so focused on clinical things, I didn't want to speak. Now, that's kind of surprises somebody that a lot of people go, "Doc, do you enjoy speaking?" Actually, believe it or not, it sounds funny. Not terribly. not terribly. I actually get more enjoyment of one-on-one, some in-depth personal stuff. When you're speaking, you're in front of thousands of people sometimes, and you're like, you're presenting great information. And during, I love it. I'm excited to go down. I got 4 talks in 5 days coming up here in a couple weeks. I'm not saying I don't have some enjoyment in it, but the idea is this: I'd rather have the intimate one-on-one with somebody to really know what's going on with them and what we can do to them. But this woman, she sat there and said, "You need to do this." And I did it, and I actually did, and my first topic was male and female hormones. That was actually my topic. And I'm like, because I was actually going, okay, I'll do it since you asked. And I did it, honestly, sounds funny, just to shut her up. So it wasn't like I was inspired to do it, but I was like, okay, I'll do a seminar. And so I put out a flyer for my office, didn't put anywhere else. It said male and female hormones. 300 people showed up. I was like, oh my goodness. 300 people filled my waiting room. It was jam-packed. I was like, all right, some people need to know this stuff. And so that's what today is about. Today is about kind of making those dots and connections. We've been kind of separating estrogens and things like that because they dominate in women, but estrogens can dominate in men. It's a bad day. We want them to dominate in Rachel. We want them to dominate in Markley. We want to dominate in Faith, and all of you women there that are on camera right now. But if it's a guy, it's a bad day. It's a bad day physically, it's a bad day mentally. So we're gonna kind of put in that intro there, we're kind of pull this all together from what we taught you before, start connecting the female and male dots on these things, and then give you some appropriate things that you can do, food-wise, okay, that are gonna really help you with these things, okay? Now, that being said, if you are allergic to any of these things, then I would say it would not be a good day for it. But there's a lot of things that you can do on a regular basis that do help this dramatically. Now, so let's kind of recap a little bit, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the estrogens itself, bring testosterone, and then we're going to connect the two. Okay, now remember, this was very eye-opening for me a long time ago. We talked about this before. There's 3 primary estrogens that a woman has, and actually so does a man. Now, they're at significant reduced amounts when it comes to males, okay? But men do have estrogen. Now, women have estrogen, and the primary source for estrogen is their ovaries. It dominates in there. But it also comes from their adrenal glands. It also comes from their adipose tissue. Now, on the flip side, males don't have ovaries. Zach, I don't think you have ovaries, okay? It's kind of cool. No, he does not. He is a very studly man, and what happens is, once again, but he does produce estrogen. Where does the dominant form of estrogen come from a man? It comes from their adrenal glands, all right? Because we do produce it, and our testicles do produce a small amount of estrogen. And actually, it's very important for fertility. I can tell you, I've never said this on camera, but obviously there's a lot of things on camera I've never said because clinically I've experienced a lot of things. But there's actually males, and Nicole Selesky can actually contest it, and so a lot of the other practitioners in Wellness Way, is we've had men that were estrogen deficient, and that's why their sperm count was bad. Let me say it again. We had men that were estrogen deficient, and that actually affected their sperm count. So now, is that the dominant thing that happens? Absolutely not. Obviously, there's more testosterone problems in the guy leading to fertility issues, but it does happen because estrogen does have an effect on the male. Okay, there's both physical ramifications and mental ramifications that happen with it. But so we have the same estrogens as a woman. Just think of it this way. We have less in our cup, okay? And the dominant ones, estrone, estradiol, estriol. And if you remember the evolution, if you're watching for the first time, please go back and look at the other videos that way. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize, and when I started to really research estrogens, remember, estriol, there's very small amounts produced. It's actually more of a metabolite. What does that mean? And that was the big thing. Then I realized that this thing was a conversion hormone. What does that mean? That means estradiol can convert into this, and it's still an active hormone. It still has both physical and mental things it does to a man and a woman. And it's just at lower amounts. And they call it a weaker estrogen, and I don't really understand why. Because what they're doing, everything that they relate in the human body is to do some disease process when you look from a medical standpoint. But once again, this actually has a significant role when it comes to certain tissues of the body, just like estradiol does and just like estrone. Now, estrone obviously dominates in more of a menopausal state, but they still have major physiological things that they do. But what's a metabolite? Then I realized, oh my goodness, there's more metabolite-based hormones, which means that they convert to other forms. And therefore, there's more than 3. And that was one thing that was significant when I was 24 years old. Mark Lee's 24. Imagine being 24 years old and going, holy crap. Not only do I realize that there is not the 3 dominant estrogens, but there's a significant amount of metabolites that we don't ever talk about. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm 24 years old going, asking women, how many estrogens do you have? And they look at me and go, what? I'm like, estrogen is not a hormone. Estrogen is a general term like sugar. Something really cool, and none of you guys know this. I actually told Bree last night, and actually it was kind of funny. I got an Instagram, and it blew my mind away. I was kind of sitting around going, this is like one of the coolest things ever. So all of a sudden I got an Instagram yesterday, and this person reached out to me, a nutrition student. Here it is. Here we go. She actually reached out to me and says, hello, me and 20 of my classmates were assigned to watch your 3 sugar videos for our nutrition class, and I am obsessed. Thank you for breaking down the information and starting at square one and then expanding upon each concept. I have a whole new perspective on sugar and appreciate all the information you gave us, as well as I want to thank you for taking the time to do these videos. I'm like, all right. Here my response was, thank you so much for the message. That means a lot to me. May I ask, who gave you an assignment, because I appreciate that they enjoyed my teaching? Of course, her name is Professor Michelle, I'll leave her last name out, at, if I say the college, I might give it away. I'll say UW Fox Valley. She's an amazing professor. Holy crap. Do you guys know that our stuff is being listed for assignments in colleges and things like that? That's kind of, I was jacked up when the I Disagree book got used for a premarital counseling book for a church. Now the material that we're putting out is giving not only students but professors a different perspective to look at this. And that's why I talk about, when we look at estrogens, if there's one thing I am going to obsess with to the day I die, is to get to women to understand that estrogens, if they don't not get this, and I love what she said here, thank you from starting from square one. Ladies, to transform everything about you, you just have to understand that there's more than 3 estrogens, and these things can be tested because it affects you dramatically, physically and psychologically. And I think everybody in this planet wants women both physically and psychologically in a great shape, okay? Because as this young couple over here is engaged, I guarantee Zach wants Mark Lee in great psychological shape if he's going to marry that wonderful woman, okay? Because the ramifications can be devastating. So now, that being said, estrogen, as I've put out there as a teaser, is not a hormone. So then I redefined it because estrogen is a blanket term. It's actually a term, and I put this in here, that represents a group of hormones that are produced by the ovaries, adrenals, and fat tissue that are now converted in other tissues, that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, of the body that carry out both physical and mental characteristics in a woman. But the story's not over. And also men. Okay? We're going to talk about this. Just not as much though. See, so estrogens do have an effect on men. Estrogens do have an effect on women. It's just a greater effect, but they both have the physical and psychological things. And that's why I want you guys to, the next time you hear a practitioner from medical to natural talk about that there's good and bad estrogens, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Remember, it makes no clinical sense what they mean by good and bad estrogens because your body produces these hormones. You know, I kind of laugh about it going, what do you mean by a bad estrogen? And they'll say, well, if estradiol gets high, it's bad. No, a high level of estrogen actually causes tissue to change the way you don't want. But if you don't have that estradiol, it's a bad day for you. See, that's where languaging really confuses women when it comes to their estrogens. And that's why women are like, oh, we got to lower estrogen as much as possible because estrogens are bad because they lead to breast cancer. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. Because once again, you can have extremely normal levels of estrogen and you can have all the BRCA genes you want. And guess what happens? You're still not going to get breast cancer. Because once again, breast cancer isn't caused by estrogens. Breast cancer is caused by those estrogen levels being abnormal, and the tissue responds the way it does based on those levels. So just understand, let's wipe this out, that's a bad idea that they're teaching us stuff. Now, once again, I'm not saying that you can't have a high level estradiol and it doesn't convert. We talked about that before. And that's why, once again, you guys know I talk about this a lot. You're taking a fat-soluble toxin, okay, or even a fat-soluble vitamin or fat-soluble hormone like estradiol, and it has to convert. And it goes through all these certain pathways. So when my wife, Christy, was extremely sick, what happened was I looked at them going, man, they're kind of missing the boat on all the pathways. Because when you looked at her labs, not only were her labs incomplete by the doctors that she was seeing, of all form, both medical and natural docs. But what happens, I was like going, we're kind of missing the boat because I can't see where they're going. Because you know why? They didn't test her properly. So I started to test her pathways and started to go, okay, how is it getting from here to here but not going here? And then once again, trying to eliminate these things, turn them into water and the things that are needed. And that's when I start to piece things together. And I realized that, especially in hormones, when you're looking at conversion, there's 3 major pathways that are extremely important to convert hormones. All right, now once again, as this is kind of just a review of it this way, but this is where these things need to be tested. Let me tell you a story of not a Wellness Way doc, but I was on the phone with a wonderful doc from Indiana. I think it was Sunday night, okay? This week. That's all I know. Yeah, it was this week sometime, but I think it was Sunday night. And his wife had a couple hormones measured, and they were sent to me. And so what happened is I actually had her, just by seeing that was, I said, we need more testing, we need to do some things, but here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to start on this just to start. And believe it or not, she reacted not the greatest. And I was like, okay, I want you to hold off on it till then. And I got her one conversion lab back and realized she couldn't, one of her pathways were actually abnormal and she couldn't metabolize some things. So I gave her something that would support a hormone production, but then symptomatology-wise, it jumped up on her and she was like, holy man, this doesn't feel good. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. That means, and I immediately came and I said, I bet you one of her pathways are blocked. And they were. She was actually deficient in something where she couldn't produce it that way. So there was a conversion problem. And I was like, oh, there we go. And so think of this way. You say, well, Doc, but you gave her great, perfect, organic, medicinal things that you use every day. Of course I do. Do you understand? But the quality wasn't the problem. The problem was actually she was deficient in certain things that I didn't know until we got her test back. And therefore, guess what? Now when we be able to put those things in, she won't have that kind of reaction. But my point of telling that story is this, is pathways are key. Pathways are key to everything in life. And then the relationship between testosterone and these estrogens are deeply connected. How are they deeply connected? Well, as you guys understand, estrogens, like we talked about before, they can be made by, once again, the ovaries. That's the majority of it, but that's not all of it. But then what can happen is you can actually have adrenal hormones. You can have fat tissue actually convert other hormones into estrogens. And that's the big part that people have totally forgotten when it comes to testosterone, when it comes to DHEA, when it comes to any of the anabolic upstream hormones that they convert. And the one thing is this, it can lead to excess estrogens, so you can have a perfectly working ovary. But if there's adrenal problems or there's actually fat tissue problems, you can have hormonal problems even though the ovary is working perfectly. Vice versa. If the ovary is bad and the adrenals and fat tissue are good, you can still have hormone problems. See, that's why hormone problems are not linear. There's no one factor. That's why I kind of find it interesting. I want you to really think about this. Okay? I'm just using this for example because it's all over the news. I cannot pop on Facebook. I cannot pop on the internet without seeing coronavirus everywhere. But here's what happens. Do you really think, please do me a favor, and think about this for a second. I'm going to pause after this. Do you really think that there is one medical treatment that can affect everybody's immune system to make them protected against coronavirus? Do you think there's one thing? That would be virtually impossible, and that would make no sense to the human body. Do you understand how many factors of the immune system there are? Do you understand there's multiple factors how your body even deals with the virus? And you're telling me that there is one silver bullet. We are not werewolves. Do you understand? For all you young generation, you probably don't realize what that was, werewolves and silver bullet. Oh, the old vampire movies, okay? Oh, I'm surrounded by young people today, all right? But the idea is this. That makes no clinical sense. Nothing at all. That's why I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to just teach the immune system and how it works. I mean, the immune system is kind of misleading. I know I'm going off on a rabbit trail today, but I got to get this because I love to read, and so I was reading stuff this morning as I was preparing. I was reading some, things about the people talking about coronavirus and people putting their opinions out there. Do you understand? The term immune system is extremely misleading. I've never taught you guys this. Okay, if you look at the liver, it's an organ. You look at the immune system, it's actually a conglomeration of a ton of cells and the organs all put together that they kind of count one thing. That's not really true. It's a vast array of organs and cells and tissues and glands that all work together. So the concept that one thing is you're gonna pay drug companies or vaccine companies to do one thing that's going to protect you is absolutely ludicrous. That makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to teach you guys the immune system in great detail this week. So once again, to reduce that fear. Well, just like this, the reason why women have demonized estrogens is because they have understood that it can contribute to breast cancer if they are abnormal. Now, I threw that last part in it when I said it's abnormal because we've been taught that estrogens are bad. Because they're the biggest hormone that actually helps you develop your breast tissue. And breast cancer is by far the dominant cancer for women. It's actually starting its uprising in men, but I'm going to show you based on this right here. Here's one thing. So when I actually start to deal with breast cancer women, this is one thing that is very common that a lot of people don't understand, but also I'll show you why it's one of the major factors they do when they treat breast cancer, all right? Because they'll treat them, they'll try to take care of it through radiation, chemotherapy, surgery, and then what they'll do is then their idea of treatment post it is these things. So what's aromatase? Let me say this. Aromatase is just involves another pathway. Let me say it again. It just involves another pathway. Well, if it's a pathway, then guess what happens? It can be measured. It can be tested for. That was the thing that when I sat back and go, here we go. Let's go after this, okay? This pathway has been known before I was born. Let me say it again. Just like all of the labs and all the testing and understanding, a lot of people say, oh, doc, this first time I heard this, how'd you create this? I didn't create anything. I actually observed. I gave a perspective on it that's different than medical, and that's why you don't hear much about this. But here's what happens. So what is this pathway? So let's define aromatase, because I like defining things, and I'll show you it's pretty easy to understand. Here we go. Also called estrogen synthetase or synthase. Now think about it. I love that word. You synthesize estrogen. You convert it. You take a form of a hormone, then there's an enzyme, an aromatase enzyme, that converts it or synthetases or synthase of actually a different hormone, majorly estrogen. Is an enzyme responsible for a key step in the biosynthesis of estrogens. It's a CY119 or 19A1, a member of the cytochrome P450 superfamily. It's kind of cool. So what is it? It's actually an enzyme. But this enzyme, guess what? You're going to find it very interesting. Now this is going to kind of blow your mind a little bit. I have showed you, if we go backwards here for a second. Let's go backwards. I showed you these pathways right here, and they massively exist within the liver. And there can be major pathways that you convert things from estrogens from one form to another. So for me to convert estradiol to estriol, or estrone to estradiol, or estrone to 2-methyl, this happens all right here. Well, this is how complex the female body is, okay? And it just absolutely fascinates me. So let's go here. Watch this. So we got the aromatase. Watch this. Aromatase. The enzyme aromatase can be found in many tissues, including the gonads, brain, adipose tissue, placenta, blood vessels, skin, bone, as well as tissues that become estrogen dominant of endometriosis, uterine fibroids, breast cancer, and endometrial cancer. Do you understand that these tissues actually, as they grow and metastasize, they actually produce more aromatase? That's why cancers can be very aggressive. And I'm going to show you that once you get cancer, and I'm so sick of cancer centers saying that sugar doesn't matter. I'm going to give you a little prelude there because once again, you have this and you give it sugar. I'm going to show you how aromatase goes up like crazy. But watch this. Let's take a step back. Do you know what's really funny? The enzyme is very little, if at all, found in the liver. It's very little at all found in the liver. So think about that. So women's estrogens are massively converted to different organs, and then a whole different area of the body it converts. I know everybody's going, what the, I apologize. I don't think I ever taught you guys that before. It's not really ever found in the liver. If anything, it's found in the liver to break it down to get rid of it. But this activity doesn't happen in the liver. So how is it that you can go to one organ doctor, an endocrinologist, and they're going to help you with all your stuff? They only look at one thing. I'm showing you the fact that I just showed you that major estrogen conversions, once they are produced, happens massively in the liver. That's basic, once again, hormone conversion. But some of your other conversions have nothing to do with that organ. They have nothing. That means you have to understand all these tissues to understand hormones. Let me say that again. You have to understand all these tissues in order to understand hormones. So how is it that we can depend on a specialist to know anything about hormones? You have to have a great understanding of all the systems. That's why I've always said, and that's why I create analogies. That's where the Swiss watch principle came in. That all the organs interact and work together. It's why, if you notice, I love this one, the brain. Do you understand that the brainstem of a woman has more affinity and receptors for estradiol than actually any receptor of the brain up there? That means this dramatically affects their mood. Do guys have estrogen receptors in their brain? Yes. They also have it in their penis. So I guess it affects both brains for us. Okay? Yes, that was pretty funny. Everyone, you guys better give me a heart on that one. Okay? But it is true. There's not a joke. It affects both of them. All right? So the idea is this. You say, well, Doc, we have estrogen receptors in our genitals? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And so therefore, guess what? We can aromatase that process in our genitals also. See, men and women actually are very different, not based on the fact that we don't have the same hormones. It's just at a dramatically different level in how they affect us, okay? But the idea is this. I love this one. Adipose tissue. Ladies, I know this is a tough subject, but you have to make sure that you are keeping your adipose tissue under control, or otherwise it's very, very, very hard to actually regulate your hormones. On the flip side, okay, as you guys know, my wife is 108 pounds. She doesn't have much fat. She doesn't, okay? She falls within the borderline low of it that way, but therefore, my wife has to be very careful because if you don't have enough fat, guess what happens? It's more complicated for you guys because I can honestly tell you, not a joke, it's actually sometimes more difficult for a petite woman to get pregnant than it is a large woman. It is, because they need those estrogens to become fertile. And sometimes women who are actually very petite actually do not have enough fat tissue for their body to actually produce and keep estrogen levels at a balance. That's why they need to support their organs. That's why they need to support their tissues that aromatase these things. And that's why I tell women, it's like you have to understand where your body's at. Because if you do not, you're going to always judge about how you feel. Because that's the important part that you need to get away from that. Because how you feel doesn't really matter. You need to see where all these levels are at and what they're doing. So that's why I want you guys to watch this, okay? But you gotta understand, it happens in blood vessels. That's why if you ever notice, blood vessels. If you ever look at birth control pills itself, man, if you actually smoke and have some form of birth control, you are setting yourself up for a cardiovascular risk like you could not imagine. You cannot imagine. And birth controls have become so common, we almost are surprised when women have never been on them. I can honestly tell you, do me a favor. Nicole did this during the women's event. if you just even raise your hand, if you've taken any form of birth control, basically every woman now has. Okay, it's actually so disrupting. That's why they call it endocrine disruptor, because it will cause things in all tissues. Now think about that. That's why if you ever look at the negative side effects of drugs, it can affect every area of the body wherever there's an estrogen receptor, wherever there's a progesterone receptor. So just understand that once these things are produced and you have some aromatase happening, tissues that are starting to change can grow and actually increase in it. That's why these conditions, once again, they fear you if they say, man, you better get endocrine under control or it can lead to this. You're right, because growth of a tissue will continue to grow out of hand if the enzyme increases, and it's going to cause some major issues. So let me show you something. So let's look at some clinical examples. So once again, I took more of a snapshot. Can you see it better on camera? I took a snapshot of a Dutch test. Now, once again, you can do by blood too to get the major estrogens here, and you can do with testosterone. But here was a woman, once again, that she lacked. So here we go. There's not enough conversion. So therefore, okay, guess what happened? She could not convert into her estrogen itself. Now, let me explain this. Let's go back here. Let's go back to when you look at where this stuff happened, okay? If you look at the tissue she had a problem with, women that work out excessively end up like this a lot. So all these fitness women that are you think I'm joking. My major thing that changed this woman, and it's kind of funny, she's now a doctor. She's now a doctor. That's why if you notice, she wrote some things on here before she sent the lab to me because she was studying stuff that way. And she's like, and I looked at her, I said, my number one recommendation to her was stop working out. Let me say it again. My number one recommendation to her was stop working out. Not only was she petite, she actually worked out every day. And no joke, she loved her six-pack. I didn't. I said, you are working your hormones down to nothing. And what happened was this. Here's what happens. I want you to think about hormones like I have my cup of coffee here. I want you to imagine this. Everything has to convert to where it can convert out properly. If it does not, this cup starts to overflow. This cup started to overflow, and she was not aromatizing, converting, because she didn't have barely any fat tissue. Because once again, all these women that are this big, and once again, and then work out excessively. You think I'm joking? My wife has been doing, working out challenge for March this year, this challenge. And I have to be even more extra special care with her supplementation, because as she goes over to work out with her best friend, what's going to happen is, yeah, she could actually get even more ripped. But what will happen is if she actually loses some of the fat tissue she has, her testosterone is going to go up and these things are going to drop. So you don't think that I have my wife on extra things right now. I do. But see, what doctor thinks like that? Next question. When was the last time that your doctor talked to you about things like this? They do not. This is not even in their perspective. So my number one recommendation for this one was, hey, guess what? You need to knock it off. And she's like, oh no, doc, saying not exercise is like, taking. I said, whoa. You're a young lady. Do you want to have children someday? And she's like, yes. But here's what happens. It's going to be very difficult for her if she didn't make these changes, because remember I used my cup and overflowing? Her testosterone, which is a whole nother show, converted into another hormone called DHT, dihydrotestosterone. Again, anybody, I'm going to jump on here because I'm going to give away something free today. I gave these guys some gifts today. I gave them a nice shirt, and what happens this, I'm going to give, Brandon, what should we give away today? What are you thinking?
Anything for...
Because as she goes...
Any liquids, maybe? You did a liquid.
I'm going to give away some Passionflower today. Thank you, Brandon. We're going to get this. I'm going to give away some Passionflower. Brandon, thank you. So here we go. I'm going to give you guys a second here. The first five people. So let me go again. I'm giving away, what's Passionflower cost? I think it's like, was it like $70 or something? Yeah, like 70 bucks. So I'm giving away $350 worth of prizes today. Here we go. If her testosterone, once again, it's not converting down to be able to eliminate properly. It's got to go somewhere. So it started to overfill and start to move in a different pathway. And that pathway was DHT. What is one of the major conditions, and this woman suffers from it, and a lot of women do. What is the major condition that a woman will suffer with if their DHT gets too high? Actually, what's the major condition? The first 5 people that post this, the first 5 people that take a guess and actually get it right, what is the condition that a woman will possibly suffer from if her testosterone overfills to DHT because she's not converting into her estrogens? Does anybody have any guess? Now, I know we have a little delay here. Oh, Dawn, you get a bottle of Rosalind, you get a bottle. Susan, you get a bottle. Who else? Uriah. Elizabeth King. We need one more. Here we go.
Sublet.
Who did?
Carrie Sublet.
Carrie Sublet. All right, ladies, you 5, because all I had was ladies' names. You're right, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, to the point that this young lady bled so badly that tampons and pads could not happen. Yes, I felt so bad for her. But I said, listen, my motivating factor for her was, yes, to get healthy, but I also want her to someday have children, okay? And she is an unbelievable young lady, and she is now a doc, and this is going to be part of her story that she's going to share with the world because she went through this. But nobody ever taught her that, listen, you need to not work out like this, okay? Oh, get this. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole just texted me and said, give away a bottle of white peony. We're going to give away a bottle of white peony, okay? Because we're getting to that, Nicole. Thank you so much. Our wonderful Nicole here, my protege in hormones. Nicole, once again, could be up here teaching this all day long, okay? So watch this. So she ended up with PCOS. Now what they did, instead of actually testing all the pathways, what did medicine do? What did her endocrinologist do? What did her OB do? They've had her on metformin for a long time. Okay? And once again, and that causes GI problems. Okay? So there's a lot of things that happen that are very frustrating. Now, let's watch this. So here, it's kind of cool. We found out, once again, we can actually assist this pathway and help her aromatase that down. And that's where, once again, that's where white peony works extremely well to actually help aromatase that down. So, Uriah, do me a favor. The 6th person that said PCOS, I'll let you pick it. You can message him. We'll give them a bottle of white peony today. So we're going to give away $400 worth of presents today, okay? So now, that's just if you're deficient in this enzyme. But the more common thing is too much. Oh, let's go back here. Okay? So, ladies, let's see if Markley can get this one right. She's like, boy, put me on the spot, Doc. You're killing me, okay? And then, like I said, we'll see Rachel also here. And so, for example, for you guys, with testosterone being that elevated, what do you think is elevated with her? If a woman has high testosterone, what psychological thing will she be dominant in? Close. Any guess? Let's see if the public gets it. Can you tell me, once again, if a woman is dominant in testosterone, what can be their dominant thing? Like Rachel said, anger. Yeah, testosterone can be a very aggressive hormone. But let's make all the guys smile a little bit. Sex drive. Because testosterone, obviously that's why guys have an extremely high sex drive, is because we have a lot more testosterone than you guys do just by nature. But here's what happens. For women, guess what happens? So this young lady, once again, had a increased sex drive. Now, just like when it comes to my advice to her, and I'll explain this to her, I say, listen, once this goes back to normal, then guess what happens? Your sex drive will decrease. It's supposed to. It's not supposed to be like that. So ladies, understand that. It's not supposed to be like that. Now, you say, well, doc, but PCOS can turn into cancer and uterine cancer. That's why I've always said in my hormone talk, the only women that have a sex drive all the time are women that eventually end up with cancer. Because it's virtually impossible for a woman to have sex drive all the time because their hormones aren't like that. So therefore, if they do have a sex drive all the time, they're going to end up with some major, condition that's going to lead to something very devastating. Okay? Now, like I said before, the most common thing is actually the opposite. They have too much aromatase. All right? Now, if you have too much aromatase, you can take other hormones and convert them down to your estrogens. That's more common. So, Doc, what is more common? I would say 10 to 1, and that's just an estimate. But I'd say I'd see 10 times more aromatase than actually a decrease like that. You're going to see more aromatase being lowered in women that excessively work out. Okay, that's what they do. They block that a lot. But the idea is this, on here, this is more of an actually increased. Now, watch what happens. But now on the flip side, watch this, guys. Their testosterone tanked because everything was converting down to estrogens. So, Zach, let me ask you a question. What do you think this woman's sex drive is like? Zero. She's like, you know what I'm saying? She's like, no way. It's like, sex? Are you kidding me? No way. Because why? And then women, let me say this. Then ladies feel bad. Because ladies can have, too many times, I've heard this thousands of times. Thousands. And I get it, ladies. You know what's really funny? I even got criticized at our women's event. One of our docs sent a letter from one of the people that were at one of the events that way. They were very upset that there was a bunch of males on the top of the stage, talking about hormone stuff and things like that, because we don't understand what women go through. I've never once in my career ever said that I have ever experienced what a woman go through. I think I have more sympathy for a woman on what they go through than any guy on the planet, because I understand this, okay? But do you know how many thousands and thousands of times that I've heard this? Doc, I have a wonderful husband, but I have no sex drive. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're sick. There's something wrong internally, but there's nothing wrong with you. Hormones actually control you both physically and also psychologically. So when women actually don't have a sex drive, when women actually don't feel even attracted to their wonderful man, I understand. I get it. It's out of your control, ladies. Let me say it again. It's out of your control. Hormones, for example, will dictate who you are physically and emotionally. So if you're going through that, please do me a favor. Do not feel bad, okay? But do me a favor. Please get help, okay? Because if those levels are extremely low, you're never going to have that kind of desire. It's biologically impossible. But see, it's out of your control. So if you actually get help, what I mean by getting help is getting tested. It's going to take that unknown into the known. And I won't start singing the song from Frozen 2. That's a dang good song, man. We were jamming out that before we started today. Into the unknown. But let's bring it to the known. But how do you get by the known? By getting tested. By seeing the appropriate person that understands all of this. The reason why healthcare today is in such disarray is because they don't think like this. It's why I teach all of you, because you will actually be able to go, put the dots together. Doctors fight it. It's why I started the Wellness Way Academy. Doctors fight this stuff. They're like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bypass you. I'm going to train actually people and make them practitioners. Make them stewards of this great information that they can spread across the world. So, because if we don't get this, women will walk around every day with a great husband thinking that something's wrong with them psychologically. And instead of understand, they blame, this is who I am, that's not who you are, it's where your hormones are. Once again, that's why when you look at understanding this, even as a spouse, if your spouse doesn't have a sex drive and you're a guy and you're sitting there going, I don't know why, well, guess what? It's time to get her tested to see what's going on inside. Now, what happens is this, but look at here, estrogen levels are starting to get high, okay? Now, once again, that's a bad day. Why is that a bad day? Because estrogens, especially for breast tissue, are a very big growth hormone. So therefore, you can metastasize those cells and start producing a significant amount, which AKA can turn into not only cysts, it can turn into cancers, it can turn into a breast cancer, it can turn into uterine cancer. You got to be careful with that. All right. So now, it's really interesting. So then, how can we then inhibit that? How can we actually make sure that that aromatase is normal? Here we go. Fertility and sterility. The American Society of Reproductive Medicine. And I can pull out a ton of journals on this. Remember, I always told you, medical practice and medical research never match up. What do I mean? They research, they have a great idea, but unless it's a patented drug that they can do themselves, that no one else can do, that they can overcharge with and charge you billions of dollars, or make billions of dollars, charge you a ton of money and make billions of dollars, they don't have much interest in it. Because watch this. Insulin-lowering treatments reduces aromatase activity. Okay. Someone has endometriosis. Someone has breast cancer. Someone has endometrial cancer. Someone has uterine cancer. Insulin, which can be stimulated by sugar intake, will increase your aromatase. So therefore, consumption of sugars will not only increase estrogen levels, which will actually increase the metastasis and growth of those cells, but it will dramatically cause a rapid growth. And I love when doctors say sugar has nothing to do with cancer. Then you don't understand the basic biochemistry and the enzymatic processes of the body. How dare you give away donuts, sell soda, and everything within your cancer treatment centers? What are we doing? What are we doing? I mean, this is basic. One of the easiest ways to increase aromatase is sugar. It's sugar. It's the number one reason why men don't have testosterone. It's the number one. Dominant. Ladies, you want your husbands to actually have better testosterone? Stop the sugar. Everything. So you're saying, well, Doc, so if I have breast cancer, that means no fruit, that means no honey, that means no bread, that means go back to no sugar January. I want you guys to have nothing. Nothing. You cannot feed this enzyme. And you will. And you will. Every research article across the world, if you understand anything about aromatase, insulin, sugar, anything that stimulates it will increase it. Now, is that the only thing? No. But something that every one of you guys can control right now. Right now. Right now. See, the idea is giving you control back. It's giving you control back. So that's why when somebody has breast cancer, and they even bring it up to them, and they say, well, I got to live my life, I'm 70 years old, then guess what? I have no sympathy for you now. I turn from sympathetic to actually disgusted. I'm like, then die. Oh, I know when people say I love that. Sometimes you have to care so much you have to let them die. Because people will fight you like crazy. I guarantee there's somebody that loved everything I said up just to that point right there. But what happens is this, caring for them is not let them perpetuate and tell them it's okay. Like I did yesterday in my live. I have a wonderful, wonderful friend whose actually mother is going through cancer again, and she was eating crappy cake. And she said to me, I gotta live. I'm like, and you're gonna die. And guess what? I'll be saddened for my best friend, but I won't feel sorry for you. I know sometimes I hurt people's feelings, but I hurt it for the right reason. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And I'll stand up for what's right. So the idea is this. One thing that you guys can do automatically. So when I see estrogen dominant women, I'm like, guys, stop the sugar. But Doc, I get it. Sugar is by far the most addicting thing on the planet. You're talking to a guy right here. The only reason why because you guys know, with the exception of my Dragon Fruit Bowl, I've been over, 4 months now and things like that. Remember, I loved my potatoes and rice, all organic, my fruit and stuff like that. And I kept my testosterone high. I'll show you how. Man, that's the one thing cool about knowing this stuff. I know what things to do. But the sad part is it's been easy and I haven't had to do these things since I've actually cut out the sugar. Now, here we go. But I also don't suffer from any condition either. So I didn't have to worry about cancers and things like that. Man, but if you do have something like this, you have to be very careful. All right? Now, watch this. So let's take a look at the doctors say, instead of doing these things, instead of something that we're going to patent something, because we're going to aromatase inhibit, what does that mean? We're going to actually inhibit that enzyme from being produced. We're going to stop it. And the three major medications still today, number one is Fermura, Aromacin, and Aromatase. Okay? These are the three most common medications for aromatase inhibitors. If you know any woman that has suffered from any estrogen dominant thing, from breast cancer to anything, but it's mainly breast cancer, they're taking this form of medication. And if you look here, I love this. I love this on breastcancer.org. Nowhere on this whole website do they even teach you how this stuff works or what you can do to take care of to control your health. It's go to your doctor, go to your doctor, go to your doctor. But all the doctors do is think this way. Aromatase inhibits stops the production of estrogen in postmenopausal women. Aromatase inhibitors work by blocking the enzyme aromatase, which turns the hormone androgen into small amounts of estrogen in the body. Isn't it funny? The medical research and medical practice have never matched up. They have understood this forever, and we spend all of our time looking at how we can manipulate body instead of normalize the body. Coronavirus or anything. Instead of building the immune system, we're actually going to try to create a silver bullet, and they're going to perpetuate fear to get you to do it. How do they get you to take this medication now for 5 years, now saying the rest of your life? It's fear. It's fear. And Aiden, our amazing young man back there, Aiden, how old are you now?
27.
27. An amazing young gun put out an amazing video yesterday. We have two amazing videographers with Aiden and Carly. And they're putting out great videos for you. And they did one on fear yesterday. And thank you. That was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful video. Proud of you. Great. So remember, I always told you guys, it takes a team to do something like this. And we have those guys here. We have them everywhere. And the sad part is this, is they perpetuate this by fear. By fear. Instead of saying, well, why don't we do the things that will actually cause aromatase not to go up? No. You go, okay. I'm going off on a rabbit trail, but I have to. Do you understand that if I see another pink ribbon on a soda can, I'm going to puke? Do you understand that? I mean, all these food companies that are just pure sugar, putting the pink ribbon on there. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? You understand? I always love that you go to these runs and they have dessert after. You're going to do a breast cancer run and do all these things, and they're giving junk out and sugar out. I'm like, and then people, because you are snowballed, you actually think you're doing the right thing. You are. You're not doing the right thing. You're saying, oh, we're helping somebody for treatment. No, you're not. You're actually perpetuating the same bad thinking that's going to lead to cancer rates. And you're going to have people on the debates going, we need everybody to pay for health care. No, we do not. We don't need somebody else, the government, to pay for health care. We need to understand this, so we don't need this kind of health care. That's how simple it is. It's this simple. It's not that difficult. Okay? Now, watch what happens when you take this medication. Here is a woman, actually, no joke, she was in her 30s. She ended up with breast cancer. Now, I love this, though. Watch this. She's 37. She's still cyclic. Aromatase inhibitors stop production of estrogen in postmenopausal women. This medication does not affect the ovaries. This mainly affects the fat tissue. So I said to women, well, instead of taking the medication to inhibit in the fat tissue, why don't you lose your fat? Can't tell a woman that, she'd be offended. I thought we were doctors. I thought we were supposed to care about people and give them good advice. You saying? It's like, what are we so worried about? When is good advice offensive? When is good advice that you care about them deeply offending people? You know what I'm saying? Now it's the flip side. My goodness. You know what I'm saying? Julia Michaels got hammered because, once again, she said, stop actually glorifying being fat. I agree with her. Because this enzyme is in fat tissue. And therefore, it's going to lead to bad things. It's going to lead to extremely bad things for women if it is not taken care of. I would rather offend them. I'd rather tell them the truth so they don't end up in a bad health situation. That's what a real doctor is supposed to do. That's what a real doctor is supposed to do, is give them the best advice for them. Now, here's a woman that wasn't menopausal, and they put her on an aromatase inhibitor medication. And what they did, by fear, if you don't take this medication, you're going to end up with breast cancer again. Well, look what they did. They inhibited it. They drove up her testosterone. Her husband was happy. Sex drive went through the roof. But she ended up with PCOS. She ended up with osteoporosis. She ended up with depression. She ended up with psychiatric issues. Because remember, estrogens are also so abundant on the brainstem. And you need high levels of estradiol in this woman. And you know what the doctor said? Don't worry about that. Focus on your breast cancer. And the husband's like, she may have a sex drive, but she was actually, her husband looked at me and she goes, Doc, I'm living with a bipolar woman. She'll have sex and then she's depressed and screaming. I said, yeah, and they did this to her. Let me say it again, they did this to her. But it's also their own understanding. That's all they know to do. I'm not against doctors. I talk to these people all the time. They actually feel handcuffed because if they don't follow through with it, they clinically can get in trouble. And this is what everybody's going to argue about who should pay for healthcare for. If you have a bad idea and somebody else pays for it, it's still a bad idea. It's still a bad idea because this will be the dominant thing paid for. Do you really think that what we do would be paid for? No. So now, my daughter is leaving. See you there, Faithers. See you in a little bit. So what I want you to think about is this. So watch this. So what I did, because Christy was in a state of estrogen dominance when I met her, and that's why her endometriosis existed. So I sat there and went, okay, I tested everything, and I started to match up the pathway, but I needed to bring some of those estrogen levels down and get them under control. So I started to research how all these pathways worked. And I said, man, if I can find these constituents in things that are not medications, because let me tell you this, remember how the side effects of aromatase inhibiting drugs are? It's because that enzyme exists in so many tissues of the body. In so many tissues of the body, including the brain. That's why it affects the brain also. So I'm like, okay, and I started digging deep, and I started to go, oh my goodness, I found the major constituent that does a wonderful job that will buy me some time to get the pathways normal, to actually start to change those estrogen levels, take some simple pressure off my wife's body. And actually hundreds of thousands of our women now after 20 years. And guess what it was? Passionflower. Passionflower. Now watch this. Watch where I got this from. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. They've been around since 1884. And it's really funny. And there's so much documented research on the fact that, watch this, the isolates in thing as being the strongest aromatase inhibitor is in Passionflower. By far. That's why it's kind of funny. Man, if you've experienced any form of aromatase that you need to be inhibited that way, this will actually do a wonderful job of starting that process. Okay? Now, this is not a replacement for an aromatase inhibitor. All this does is give you a time to actually figure out all the rest of the pathways. It gives you time. Remember, supplementation, herbal, or anything like that, all it does is buy you time to find out and actually make all these things right. See, so as I gave that to Christy, her body changed for a time being, but if I wouldn't have figured out why those pathways were off, then this would eventually not worked anymore. See, so don't think that all of a sudden I'm just going to take that and keep my estrogen levels. No. I had to find out why her estrogen levels were not being metabolized, and that was a liver issue, and we started to restore that pathway. Do you see how this all puts together? So we got to give this because this affected her brain. This affected her mood. This affected her cycle. This affected her bones. This affected everything. And it's kind of cool. And it's kind of neat. You say, Doc, is there more research? There's so much research on the aromatase inhibiting effects of Passionflower. You can pull up all the PubMed articles. It's absolutely crazy. Why don't you hear about this? Because you can't patent it. Can't patent it. Do you understand? I can't charge $3,000 for this thing. Okay? I think it's worth $50,000, especially if you've been through any form of breast issues that way. If you've been through any endometriosis, if you've been through any estrogen dominant thing that there is today. Now, is that the only thing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's other factors that do a wonderful job. I just pulled out all the ingredients that I read about, including resveratrol, vitamin E, zinc, And once again, these all, once again, can be tested for. These are weaker forms of things that can aromatase inhibit. But there's major food sources that these things come in with. There is. I'm going to show you a couple of them. I'm actually going to show you a couple of the food sources I like that do a great job in these things. All right? So remember, in these, once again, I put this up here because if all you do is look at these constituents, what are constituents? They're ingredients. So I didn't look for Passionflower. I don't say Passionflower is good for this. I look at the ingredients that are in the plant itself and go, every ingredient that our pathways need, God already created. Isn't that cool? That is the coolest thing on the planet. It's just that nobody took the time to match it up until I did 20 some years ago. And I started to go, here's my lab, here's what's going on, here's all the pathways, there's ingredients, there's constituents, there's enzymes, and I start to search all these things and I start to find them in great medicinal herbs and nutrition and other things that I sat there, and when doctors, I explained this to them, they gave me the palm to the face. They're like, no, because you're going to go against everything that we still are taught today 20 years later. Remember, the I Disagree book should have been written 20 years ago. But guess what happens? The I Disagree book, for example, will continue because today I just would have renamed it and called I Still Disagree. I still disagree. I still disagree the way they're teaching people, the way they're leading people, because they're going down the wrong path. If you don't believe me, how are we doing for breast cancer? It goes up every year, regardless of how many pink ribbons there are. Okay? So what can we do? What can we do? Understand the pathways. Understand these things. Do some reading. Listen to our doctor's videos. Watch the Saturday show. Share it. Fact check everything I say. Take your health into your own hands. I am a tour guide. I'm hoping to take you on the coolest tour there is on the planet. And as long as I'm still breathing, I will continue to do it this and every media aspect. And if they stopped every media aspect, I would still do what I did before to actually build all our big clinics. I will just go around and talk to people because you can't silence good information. But then leads number 2, get tested. That's so vitally important. You need to get tested. Now, I will tell you this. There's certain foods that I like to eat that, number 1, will keep testosterone decent for a man because what it'll do, it does a great job of estrogen blocking and inhibiting when it comes to this stuff, but also women. This is great in women too. And I actually like what it does as far as a food source that way. As you look at some of those constituents, no joke, pomegranate seeds actually are absolutely wonderful when it comes to this. You can actually just buy the seed itself. I don't encourage you to do the juice because once again, now you get some concentration of sugar. But if you actually get the seeds itself, you can pull those little biggers out and chew on them, and they have major, major, major benefit to your estrogen and testosterone levels that way. Now, another food that a lot of people have no idea about, but guess what happens? It's absolutely incredible for you, is Aerugis bisporus, button mushrooms. Button mushrooms, the ones you can put on your salad. They're fantastic. They are absolutely wonderful at estrogen levels and testosterone levels. They are fantastic foods as long as you're not allergic to them. Once again, they are amazing things that do great job for your hormone levels. But of course, if you want to estrogen inhibit, if you want to aromatase inhibit, by far Passionflower is by far the most dominant thing. It is. There is nothing that I have found on this planet with the exception of medication. Medications always work. Medications will always do what they say they do. Okay? I'm not saying they're good for you, but they'll always do what they say they do. If you're taking Fermura, it will aromatase inhibit. You can do a lab. It'll show it to you right away, and that's what, look what it did. But look what it did to every other tissue it affects too. It aromatases your bone, your brains, your blood vessels, everything. And that's kind of scary. Now, once again, I want you guys to understand this because as you do, you can understand a relationship that all these things are connected. Do you understand that estrogen, just looking at estrogen makes no sense. Just looking at testosterone makes no sense. All of these hormones are deeply connected to one another. All of these organ systems are deeply connected to how all of your hormonal system works. You know, when you look at production for a guy for estrogen, you're looking at testicles and adrenals, but his fat tissue can affect it. So guys, that's why if you ever notice, when guys get actually estrogen dominant, they get gynecomastia, which is man boobs. They start to get a belly. they start to actually suffer from breast cancer and other cancers that, once again, were more known as woman-based diseases because estrogen dominant there, but guys are getting it just as much. Guys are more emotional and wussies ever in history today. It is. Culturally, I know that happens, but not a joke. I see guys that are so darn emotional, I'm like, dude, you gotta check your testosterone levels, man. Because testosterone, as Rachel talked about, is a very aggressive hormone. It's very aggressive. And so now I see guys actually become actually too gentle. I'm not saying that they're gonna hurt anybody, but I'm saying going, man, you just, you're not supposed to be that soft, guys. You're really not. You see, it's just not how testosterone affects our brain, but it's how it affects a woman's brain. And that's why when I see women get very aggressive, you ask a woman that has PCOS. Actually, I will use this for example because she tells the story herself. When Nicole Selesky came in, as you guys know, she suffered from PCOS. That's what brought her to the Wellness Way. And I explained all these things, and she got so enamored. She's like, Doc, I just got to learn everything from you. And then I've poured into her so much through the years. She is actually a hormonal genius. Okay. Now what happens is this. But during my consultation with her, I looked at her and said, married, right? Yep. Happily married, right? Yep. Great husband, right? Yep. I looked at her husband and said, your wife's sex drive will go down. And he's like, no, I don't want it to go down. Of course you don't. Because our testosterone wants it to stay up like crazy. Okay? But that's not biologically possible in a healthy woman. It's not biologically possible. You guys need to understand these things. They're all massively interconnected that way. So, that being said, just another form of estrogens with testosterone. But you know something? I can put up DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone, all the hormones on there. They're all greatly connected. I'm just trying to get you guys to get the concept and the understanding. But do me a favor, as you saw the things you need to do, get tested. Understand this. Research it. It's your body. Watch these videos. But can you do me a favor? Can you share it today? Can you share it? Because things like this can dramatically change a 24-year-old's life, a 26-year-old's life, a 13-year-old life. My daughter was sitting here watching just till she had to leave that way. My daughter understands this stuff. Why? We taught him. We taught him. And the funny part is by teaching this, my daughter, I've never talked to her about being a doc. She's like, Daddy, I want to follow in your footsteps. I'm like, really? She's like, yes. I just see what happens, and I see how people don't understand this, and I want to follow in your footsteps. I was like, holy crap. That brought me to tears, because I don't teach my girls to be like me. I teach my girls to love God with all their heart and seek Him and figure out who you are, because your daddy, your mom, the culture will never tell you who you are. That's a God-given trait that you have. But when she came to me and said, I want to do what you do, I was like, oh, that was moving. And it's why our academy exploded. It's why our Wellness Way Academy, once again, because Faith would have been the perfect person, as she's learned right now, to be an academy person. Because she is studying this and learning it. Man, when she had anatomy and physiology for her school, even the school actually asked me to come in and teach hormones to the teenagers. I was blessed, and I thank you so much, Professor down in Fox Valley. Thank you so much for using my sugar videos to expand on these young minds that give them a better perspective to stop saying things about sugar that are not true and misleading people so they don't know how to take care of themselves. Thank you. I thank all you guys for constantly watching. I thank all you guys for your constant messages. I thank you guys for stopping in. They're in their 20s. Think about this. The direction of their life is going to be absolutely amazing because they're going to be able to do this and know this themselves. So thank all of your Wellness Way docs. From East Coast to West Coast to across seas. I was texting with Dr. Page this morning because she is 6 hours ahead. And we were just talking about some of the clinical things about the people that came to the Hormone Protection Seminar. And once again, if you have not been to my Hormone Protection Seminar, I'm going to say this very humbly. It's freaking amazing. It will change the direction of your life. I'll be in Chicago. I'll be down south in North Carolina. I'm going to be in Tampa. Go to drpatrickflynn.com. All that website does is show you where I am and what I'm doing. That's all it is. It's just about the seminar that way. The major website, obviously, is thewellnessway.com, which is becoming one of the most searched websites in healthcare in the world now. And that's because of people like Aiden, Brandon, Uriah, Rachel, all the docs across the country from what the information we are bringing to you. So, on that point, thank you. You guys have a beautiful March 7th. Enjoy this beautiful Saturday. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and thank you so much today for watching A Different Perspective. Hey, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video or live stream. Also, share this video with a friend. Once again, thank you for watching.